Hello, MUS 1002 students. So this is a updated video of the Composition 3 project using the new Ableton Live 12. If we take a look at the project rubric, there are a number of things that we need to do. So again, using Ableton Live, what we're going to do is create a piece from scratch that combines the built-in instruments, the drum rack, and sounds that you record. So you can only use the built-in instruments and drum rack in Ableton. No loops, clips, or samples, just what you program in as MIDI data, and sounds that you record yourself into Ableton as well. You need a melody instrument, a bass instrument, and a drum rack, which must be programmed via MIDI, and an optional harmony part to create a 3 to 4 minute piece. You must also incorporate vocals of any type. You could do spoken word, rap, singing, pretty much anything that has a text that you either write yourself or take from Project Gutenberg, and there's a link in the PDF. Public domain texts are available on Project Gutenberg. It's very, very easy to use. You can search by an author, or you could search by a title as well. You can search by collections like poetry, sci-fi, even something a little bit more esoteric like cookbooks or car maintenance manuals as well. So you're going to add that text to your project by recording it into Ableton. Then you will need to share the folder of the entire project with me. So as with Project 2, this means the session folder, not just the session file, the exported final song, all samples that were used, and the write-up for this as well. So let's take a look at what we've got in Ableton. I have everything set up to use live intro stuff. I've just tagged all of that because I am running the full suite version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the drums because I feel that I'm a little weak with the drums in general when I have to try and play them in. So let's begin with that. So I'm going to search for a drum kit that I like. Okay, I kind of dig that, so I'm going to grab it and just drag it over here. Then I'm going to hit the tab key. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. We're just going to do a 1-bar pattern. I'm just going to select that in the drum track. Then I can right click on that and I can go to Insert Empty MIDI Clip. Now here in the lower part of the screen, I'm going to grab my pencil tool and I'm just going to program in a quick drum part. This is not necessarily going to be the best sounding thing, but let's just kind of build it up a little bit. I do have quite a few snares. That's kind of nice. So I'll use 2 different snares here and alternate them a little bit. Get some hi-hats. We'll add an open one. Oh, I'm going to make that an open one as well. And then let's just hear that real quick. Okay, it's okay. It's a start. I would probably do some other stuff with that. So let's create another clip. Same thing, right click, and then insert empty MIDI clip. Then I'm going to do another very basic pattern, but I'm going to play on the off beats, I think. Like that. With the snares and get a little bit more interesting pattern. I've got some toms. Got high, mid, and low, so let's play with those. We'll start with low. And then we're going to as well. And let's hear how that sounds. Okay, so kind of cool. Both of these are currently set to loop. So I could actually use these sectionally, maybe every 8 bars, and then just loop them out. I think we'll start with that and see how it sounds. So there's basic drums. Next, I need to have other things that I program in. I need a melody instrument, a bass instrument as well. So I'm going to go back to Session View by hitting Tab. And then let's take a look at what we've got here for the instruments. So let's try searching for a bass. I'm going to use the search feature because that usually works really, really quickly. Definitely don't want chorus. Let's try simpler and see what they've got there. So that essential kind of grabs me. I'm going to grab that and record enable. I think we can use that for kind of a cool descending bass line. So I'm going to turn on the metronome. I'm going to tab back over to arrangement view, and I'm just going to record a little bass. One thing I'm going to do before I do that, though, is I'm going to go to Preferences, and I'm going to go to Record, Warp, and Launch. I'm going to take a look at the count-in. I've got 1 bar of count-in. You can set that to none, 1, 2, or 4. I'm going to leave it at 1. I just need to know what that is. That means that when I hit record, I'm going to hear 4 clicks, and then it's actually going to start the recording process. So I get 4 beats for nothing, and then it's actually recording. And that's going to help me a lot so that I can, feel the pulse and use that to get into the whole pulse of the song. Okay, well, I screwed that up, but I can fix that a little bit. I'm going to take a look at my clip. I can select it and then hit Shift Tab, and that will bring it up. I've got, a little bit of a dynamic mismatch there. Extra note here, so we're going to delete that and lengthen that note. Then that one I want the F. So we're going to end like that. So now here's my part. Okay, and that actually sounds pretty good. I've got that, I kind of put that on the wrong bar, but that turnaround sounds really hip, so I'm just going to duplicate that. I like how that sounded in the drums. So now I need a melody to go on top of this. So let's find a melody instrument, and again, I'm going to just kind of search around in here. Let's try looking under simpler and see what we have for melody. I'm thinking synth. So let's try, synth lead, and if that doesn't give us anything good, we can go to somewhere else. Okay, I like that. So I'm going to grab that, move it over, and then move it there. And I'm just going to Okay, So that's kind of cool. I'm clearly playing in C minor, so using one of the new features of Ableton Live, I can actually play with the tuning system up here. So this little purple button, if I turn that on, that enables tuning quantization, and I can just change my key to C minor, which will help me to stay in tune a little bit if I decide that I want to force everything to play within that key. I'm actually not too worried about that. I'm going to turn that off, but that's an option there if you so desire to use it. We're going to go back to home, and we're going to turn on the click track once again. And I'm just going to add a little bit of a melody over here. I'm going to duplicate my bass line. Notice I didn't say that you have to have tons and tons of different sections. So that's something very useful to know. I just need a melody instrument, a bass instrument, and a drum rack, and then I can do all of the other stuff however I so desire. So I'm just going to have this repeated section for the first 16 bars, and let's add a melody on top of that. Okay, I think that worked pretty well. I'll just crop the end out. Then I'm going to grab my clip. Might be a little on the quiet side, so we'll hit Shift-Tab to bring up the clip. And yeah, I've got some velocities down here that are way too quiet. I'm just going to bring those up a little bit. And pretty much, actually, you know what? There's an easier way to do this. We can just kind of grab larger sections and boost them up like that. Individuals as well. Good. Wrong way on that one. Okay, so that looks like it's pretty quantized, but I do want to make sure it's really in sync. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to go to quantize settings. I'm going to sync it to the 16th note. I'm just going to click that a couple of times, and that will snap everything to the 16th note grid. Little problem here on that E flat. I'm just going to move that over. That sounds better. It looks like I've got an error at 14 or 15, so let's try that. Okay, actually I don't. That sounds pretty good. Let me double check 13. Yep, okay, we're good. So I'm just going to edit this one note here and make it a little bit smaller and a little bit punchier. Okay, so now I've got the first 32 seconds of my song. But what other things do we need? Well, we're probably going to want to add some effects, and we're probably going to want to do a little bit of mixing before we start adding the text. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to go back out of the arrangement view into session view. And here I have the whole audio library, and under audio effects, there's a lot of stuff. And anything that I have attached a green dot to is stuff that you'll find in Ableton Live Intro. Again, I am running Suite, so there's quite a bit. So I'm going to play around with probably, let's add a little bit of delay to my drums. And I'm going to turn those to solo, and we're just going to hear the drums with the delay. Okay, and actually on its default settings of sync to 3, it doesn't sound bad, so I'm just going to leave it there. For my bass, I'm going to solo that, and I want my bass to be a little bit, yeah, let's go a little bit more aggressive. So I'm going to use erosion. I'm just going to grab that, put it on the bass. Okay, and I need a little bit more aggression, so I might grab a Redux and add that as well. Redux is a bit crusher. Be extremely careful of how you use this because it can blow up your headphones if you're not careful. That rate can go all the way from 20 to 40,000. In previous versions of Ableton Live, you can take it all the way down to 1. For the love of all that is good and holy, do not take it down to 1. That means it's either fully on or fully off at maximum volume, and that has a tendency to blow up speakers. So I'm just going to play this, and we're going to listen to what's going on as I reduce the rate. So I've just downsampled it. I've gone from 40,000 for the sample rate to 4.42K. So it's roughly a factor of 10. But that means that it's going to be more angular, a little bit more aggressive sounding. If I take it down even further, let's take it down to 400. You can hear it gets even more distorted and angular. So we'll go back to 4.42K, and then let's play with the bit depth, which is going to reduce the volume range a little bit. Okay, I like how that sounds. One thing I will do is I'm always a big fan of reverb, so I'm going to add just a little bit of reverb, which is already on send A. And I'm actually going to send some of the kit to that as well. Reverb helps to make everything just kind of blend together. With my actual synth, I like what it's doing right now. I'd like it a little bit better with some more reverb. And I'd also like it a little bit better with a second copy of that that's got a different instrument on it. So I'm going to hit Control D or Command D on a Mac to duplicate it. Then I'm going to go back to my instruments, and I am going to go to Simpler, and we're going to go, I'm going to go to my live intro and then Simpler. Actually, that one. So the beauty of doing this with MIDI is that if I'm doing it in MIDI, I'm just copying the exact same MIDI data, but they have slightly different sounds. So listen to both of them together. There's the new one. And there's the old one. So that's kind of a cool effect. I can actually use that really well. I'm going to space them out on opposite sides of the stereo spread. I'm going to take the panning knob here. I'm going to change that. And let's bring up the info file. So that is currently 30 left. I'm going to move that over to 30 right. we can see. There we go. So now if I hear both of them, they're spaced out kind of evenly. I'm also going to throw a delay effect on there. There's a delay line by default, but I want that to be a little bit faster, I think, so we'll set that. Actually, we're going to do unsynced. Then I'm just going to adjust the balance until I get them where I like them. So now let's return to the beginning. Let's hear both parts together. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this, actually. This sounds pretty hip. Again, this is only the first 30 seconds of my piece, so I would need to do a lot more. The piece needs to be between 3 and 4 minutes, but we're off to a pretty good start. Now, the other thing that I have to do is I do have to incorporate vocals. And I can also incorporate other things that I record. I can use anything from a melody instrument, a bass instrument, a drum rack, and then I can also record other sounds in order to create the project. So let me show you how to do that. I have 2 audio tracks in Ableton by default. One is going to be set here, external in, channel 1. That is the mic that I'm speaking into. In fact, if I record and enable this, you'll see that it should, don't crash. There it is. Okay, there we go. Thought it was going to crash for a second. Okay, so it's recording, and you can see it's moving in the meter bars in relationship to my voice. Now the other one is set to external in, and it's set to channel 2. I have 8 physical inputs on my interface, but I'm only using channels 1 and 2 for this. And I'm going to turn that on, and that is actually set to go to my electric mandolin. So let's get some cool effects from there and use that. Okay, I'm going to turn in monitor in, so you should be able to hear this. All right, so I'm going to record just some harmonics, and we're going to use those in sync with different parts in the song. So we'll go to track 6. We're going to make sure that everything's at the beginning by hitting stop a couple of times. And then I think I'm going to do a couple. Just a couple of harmonics, and we can separate them out and edit them however we need to. Okay, not a good take. Well, fortunately, Control-Z or Command-Z on a Mac will undo that, and it's as if it never existed. So let's do that one more time. I kind of like what I did there, so I'm just going to edit this take. Set the instrument down first on the couch behind me, and we're going to take a look at the take. And I'm going to hit Shift-Tab, and we'll see what's going on. So I'm going to set input to auto. Once again, I want to hear where that last note ended. And we're just going to solo this. Okay, that's pretty good. So it really is 8 bars. I'm just going to move everything over there for the end and for the loop brace. So now I've got bar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I am a little quick on bar 4. So fortunately, this is not something that is too bad. What I can do is I can get out of here and edit that a little bit. There's a really great ability to do stuff in here. I'm going to change my grid size to 16th notes. I'm going to zoom in. I can take a look at these 2 notes, the beginning of bar 4 and bar 5. So Ableton has a really cool feature called warp mode that we're going to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my mouse over here, and if I double click, I create one of these warp points. And I need a couple of these. We're going to do that. We're going to do one more. So now I can rearrange to make sure that everything starts exactly perfectly on those grid lines and that everything is perfectly realigned. This is kind of the secret sauce of Ableton to be able to do this with warp mode. It is far and away the single greatest feature. This is quantizing actual audio. So we've got some really cool options there. If I take a look at the envelopes, everything looks good. Sample looks good. All right, now let's listen to that again. We're going to hit apply. We're going to close. We're going to go out of there. Okay. Oh, and that last one needs a slight adjustment, so I'm just going to create a couple of final warp points, and I'm going to move it so that it's perfectly on the grid line. So now I'm going to go back here to the tools, and you'll notice these are very, very quiet. Well, there is a very easy way to fix that. Under Tools, I have the ability to adjust the gain. So I'm going to make all of the notes in the clip louder. So if I do that, I'm going to turn on all of the parts by taking off solo, and now we should be able to hear all of this. Alright, so that worked really, really well. If I want to, I can turn on loop, and then I can just grab the edge of the clip and loop it out to my full section. The other thing that I might want to do is, if I really do feel like I need a little bit more volume, I can go to Audio Effects, not Instruments, and I can grab a compressor. And what the compressor is going to do is it's going to normalize the volume between the loudest points and the softest points. So it does that by taking the louder parts down if they exceed the threshold, which is this bar right here. So I'm going to hit play. I'm going to solo this once again, and you can see what happens as I do this. So there's my first peak. Next one. Now we're starting to get louder. There we go. Now we're actually exceeding the peak. You can see what happens. It has that little dip in the line. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to add a little bit of makeup gain. So at this point, if I bring it back in, we're actually starting to get a little hot. We're actually clipping on that, so we're definitely going too hot. I'm going to take my makeup gain, my output to -1, and we'll see if that works. So I've got something I can live with. It's a little loud, but kind of cool. I'm going to add a separate set of effects to this. I'm going to use a little bit of an effect that I love called grain delay, and this will allow me to get really kind of crazy with this. I'm going to change the spray and the frequency. I'm going to add a little bit of feedback. Okay, so that creates some cool effects, and I'm using just a little bit of delay. Everything's just mapped to the XY pad, so I've got frequency, which is currently on the Y-axis, delay, which is currently on the X-axis. I'm going to turn off sync delay so I have actual time. That sounds really good. I like that, so I'm going to add a little bit of reverb. I'm not going to use the reverb that's on the bus. I'm going to do a separate one because I want to hit the freeze as soon as it starts. So what you can see is that I've just muted the track, but here in the channel strip it's still going, and that is the effect of the freeze. So that's a really cool effect, and it allows me to capture something that's going into the reverb and save that and let that continue processing. And then since I've got my dry wet set at about 55%, it still is letting things go through there and function and get reverb, but it's not freezing those. So very cool. All right, so what else do we need? Well, we need a text. And again, you're going to want to go to Project Gutenberg, and the link is there. Or you're going to want to write a text yourself, and you need to include a file with the text that you use and a link to the source if you use Project Gutenberg. So I have cheated a little bit, and I've already gone there. And in fact, I have found the text I'm going to be using, which is the introduction to the novel At the Mountains of Madness. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get through all of this. Obviously, it's very long, but we can do a little bit and show you how to get the recording to work. So with the recording, I am going to make sure that my mic is plugged into Ableton before I start everything. Then I should have audio from set to external in, and my mic is on the leftmost input. It's labeled channel 1 on my interface, so I want to make sure that it's on channel 1. And you can see that it is, in fact, getting a signal. If I turn monitor to auto and hit record enable, you can see that it's getting a signal and it's actually going through there as well. I don't want to have that vocal doubling effect in my ears. It will throw me off and it will make me get kind of weird with the text, although it's a weird text anyway. So I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to turn monitor off. This just lets me know that I am, in fact, actually recording. So that's the nice thing. So now I'm going to set that up, and then I'm going to have to really quickly switch over the text after I hit record. So just to give myself a little bit more time, I'm going to go to Preferences, Record, Warp Launch, and I'm going to set the count in to 2 bars. So I'm going to have 8 full clicks of the beat before it starts. And then I can start recording the text. So I just want to make sure that everything is record enabled. I'll turn back on our other channel so we get that little frozen reverb. Oh, that sounds so cool. I love that sound. And we're going to hit record, and yeah, I'll read a little text. I am forced into speech because no science is to follow my advice without it is altogether So there is the first sentence. Again, I might have to edit things. I can select the clip and hit Shift Tab if it's not showing. I can adjust the gain. Let's solo it and listen to it. It is altogether against my will that I tell my reasons for opposing this. So maybe I want to make it a little bit deeper. I might grab the pitch and take that down. We'll do -3 semitones.
It is altogether against my will that I tell my reasons for opposing.
At that point, I'm going to set the warp mode to repitch, however. It is altogether against my will that I tell my... And let's do complex. That might be better.
It is altogether against my will that I tell my reasons for opposing this
So, okay, at that point, I have a seriously darker voice. If I want to, I could split the clip. I can do that by right-clicking and going to split, or I could hit Control-E. And the benefit of splitting the clips is that then if I have different segments that need different amounts of volume, I can apply them separately. So we'll drop that there. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can get the individual levels, and then we'll select that one and we'll boost it up. Okay, so now I've got a more normal volume level. I have, in fact, edited everything. I can also move things around a little bit, so maybe I want it to end a little bit more dramatically. I'll crop that out. I'll move that out. There we go. And now let's turn off the metronome. Let's make sure that nothing is soloed, and let's hear the first part of my piece. I will add some reverb to the voice, and that's going to be about it.
I am forced into speech because men of science have refused to follow my advice without knowing why. It is altogether against my will that I tell my reasons for opposing this contemplated invasion of the Antarctic, with its vast fossil hunt and its wholesale boring and melting of the ancient ice caps. And I am the more reluctant because my warning may be in vain.
Okay, so notice that I made some volume adjustments while I was doing that playback. That's pretty common. Nothing wrong with that. I might move the bass over a little bit. I might move the frozen mandolin plucks over a little bit. But that's the basic process that I would do. I would go through, I would create my sections one at a time. In this case, I'm using 16-bar phrases, and I could probably get through up to this final line here. It's an unfortunate fact that relatively obscure men like myself and my associates, blah, blah, blah. That would be kind of a good place to start and end my piece. So I would kind of go through line by line and figure out how I want to structure the piece, what sounds I want to use, and then record all my lines separately on top of those. But that's basically it. So again, your piece needs to be between 3 and 4 minutes, so pay attention to the time codes at the bottom. When you have 0:00, that's the beginning, 1:00 is 1 minute, 2:00 would be 2 minutes, and so on. The other thing to be aware of is that when you save this, we're going to save, and we're going to go to the desktop. I'm going to call this Comp3 demo piece, and it's going to save. And once I've saved that, it will have, in fact, created the folder, Comp3 demo piece project. I got to have everything in there. It's got to have the project info folder, the samples folder, especially the samples folder. I don't even care if the project info folder is missing, but it has to have the samples folder. The reason for that is that anything that you've recorded will be in there. So it's got my different audio clips that I recorded, and it's saved those in there. Without that, if you submit your project to me, it will be blank. All of the audio recordings that you do will just be totally missing, and there's a very real possibility that your other parts will also be missing as well. So you have to make sure that you save it in that format. Then, the other thing you want to do is, after you've saved it the first time, go to File, Collect All and Save, and make sure that the top 3 options, files from elsewhere, files from other projects, and files from user library, are selected, and hit OK. What that does is it consolidates all files into there. So now I've got other stuff in there. If there were things from other projects, it would copy those in there. I also have my backup files, and then I've got the project info. But again, I have to have the actual project folder, which has that special black folder icon. That is what you have to submit for the project. When you're doing your write-up is going to be over the standard 3 questions: the aesthetic content of your piece and what it's about, how it relates to the concepts discussed in Module 3, and your reflections on the technology involved in creating the piece and how it differs from your understanding of it when you created Composition 2. So in other words, in Comp 2, you were just getting started with Ableton. Now that you've had a chance to work with it a little bit more, how has your knowledge of the program developed? Is it easier? Is it harder? That sort of thing. Again, those have to be in a Word document. That's .doc or .docx only. I do not accept Google Docs files or PDFs. So doc only. But put that in your Ableton project folder, upload the entire folder to Google Drive, and then you can submit a link to that on Moodle. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I am happy to answer all of them.